This is Money, Motivation, and Mike, and I am your host, Michael Wainwright. In charge of all the controls and the mothership, as always, audio engineer Jason Wright. And hello to you, world. This is the show that will change your life. You can contact us at info@mx3.vip, and you can find all our content at mx3.vip or on YouTube at youtube.com/@mx3 podcast. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you will receive all of our new notifications of our new content, which, as you all know, comes out every Monday morning at 9 o'clock. Today, as we start episode 55, had several topics that I wanted to get started with here on the year number 2 of Money, Motivation, and Mike, but then I decided we needed to have a recap of year number 1. And talk about some of the things that we've been able to accomplish, the subscribers that we now have, the listening audience from the different parts of the world that we now have. I believe the tax-paying citizens of the United States that we now try to help get more informed and more educated on things, the topics that we discovered and brought to you over the episodes of our podcast. All these things are making up that help us bring topics and guests and our kind of numbers that we're fixing to talk about here momentarily to you, the listening audience of Money, Motivation, and Mike. And a little recap of our first year, and then some of the future topics and some of the things that we're going to do in this upcoming year. So today is kind of more of a recap. And also for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, we're going to go over some of these topics that we have touched on, and you will be able to go back to mx3.vip and find that content. And maybe you don't realize that it was even there. So we're going to touch on some of those things over the next few minutes and try to bring you some more information that maybe you did not even realize was available to you. But in July of 2022, the first Monday of July 22, we came on the air for the first time ever. And that day, we had 160 subscribers, 160 people that downloaded and listened to our podcast. And at that time, it was just a podcast. Today, over the last 30 days, going into today, for the last 30 days, we've had 28,263 downloads. Over the last 4 weeks, the last 4 episodes, we are averaging 7,065 weekly numbers. So we went from 160, and in 52 weeks, 365 days, we are now averaging a little over 7,000 listeners and watchers, for that matter, with YouTube on a regular basis. We are flattered once again. We are mesmerized by the fact that you continue to tune in and listen to our content, and our numbers continue to grow on a weekly basis, a daily basis for that matter. And we are very, very ecstatic for you to be able to do those things and bring that kind of numbers to us. That tells me, Jason, that our content and our topics, our guests, are what people want to hear. We try to stay out of what I call the crap of the world. Now, we are going to endeavor into some of those things in the upcoming year that I'm going to touch on here momentarily. But nevertheless, I believe for the most part, what we've tried to accomplish in the first year of Money, Motivation, and Mike, and showing people about making money and saving money and taxes when it comes to money, and then motivating them to be able to do it, and then the experiences of life that I've had as the Mike part of the show. So I believe the things that we have been bringing to the listening audience has been something that they want to hear, and that's what the numbers show. So we're very, very happy with that. But going all the way back to those first episodes of Me, Myself, and I, and those 2 parts, and a whole lot about me and my life up to that point. And of course, you've been listening over the last year, and you know a whole lot more about it. And then bringing another episode of balance to you, and something that I have struggled with all my life with balance. And having guests like Mark Kennedy with marketing, and Braden Wright with real estate, and Dr. Ryan Knight with also revisiting on balance, and as well as his chiropractic care that we've talked about, and going into the religion and the faith a little bit with my pastor, Pastor Chuck McQueen of Southside Baptist Church. And then moving on there in the fall into things like cash flow and compound interest and journals. And yes, I do keep journals. And yes, I have journals for many, many years. Maybe some of them aren't exactly at my fingers where I can pull them off, but I know where some of those are. And I believe unless something has happened, they're in some storage. But nevertheless, journals and how rich people think and the seeds of wisdom and the Jim Rome days, and someone that has mentored me throughout the last 20 years, not individually and not personally, but due to the fact of being able to get a hold of his literature. And then coming into tax preparation and the confidence that a person has and being on top of the mountain. And there in that first quarter, getting into what was the Super Summit and the interviews that we got to do when we were on site there in Fort Lauderdale with these multimillionaires and getting to talk to them. And the president of the Family Office Club, Richard Wilson, who encouraged me now a year and a half ago in January of 22 to get into the podcast business, which obviously was a great motivational thing for me to do, and something that I'm still indebted to Mr. Richard Wilson for encouraging me to do that. And talking about what Michael Markowski believes will be the recession and the Great Depression here of 2023 as we endeavor in towards the end of the year. And then going into things like talking out of both sides of your mouth, which in essence was really four sides of your mouth, and your personal responsibilities of being a citizen in this world, going back to November and making time for what you enjoy, and changing your thinking and the choose and the debate and the fundamentals and finding your center, all things that we sometimes struggle with, and coming into 2023 and talking about corporations and LLCs and entities and things that you really need to continue to focus on right now. And now that maybe you have filed your income tax returns and gotten that requirement behind you, and maybe you don't have an entity at the particular moment, now's the time to go and listen to that particular episode, and then get in touch with your advisors to see if that's something that you need to do, or how do I do it? And the Social Security benefits that affect so many of us that the numbers tell us will be coming to a situation where we can no longer fund 100% of the Social Security benefits that are needed to supply for those who have participated in Social Security over the years, and getting over yourself. An episode back in March, it was an episode I really enjoyed, and taking care of your health, something that all of us should be doing. And I know that it comes and goes of taking care of your health. You really get excited about it whenever you may have an issue. And when things are going good and your engine is running great, maybe you don't take care of your health quite as much as you would like to, and finding a tax preparer. And obviously at MW Wright & Company, we obviously think that we know a whole lot about tax preparation, as we've been doing it for 33 years. And we've talked a lot about taxes. And then that subject of quitting and moving on from quitting and not having that a part of your life. And getting into an interview that Mr. Richard Wilson did with Mark Cuban, and talking through that. Lots of good things that we have done there. The freedom of speech that we just touched on here in the last month and a half ago, and the closed mind, Murphy's Laws and Kidlin's Laws. And two episodes that we just finished up over the last couple of episode 51 and 52 was the scary times of 1 and 2. And something that what I thought was really, really neat was the story of the Berkshire Hathaway company. And, that all come about because I was watching the shareholders meetings there back in May. And then we turned that into a couple of episodes. And something that's big here. We are in the fall, in the summer, going into the fall, and the fall, as we all know, is typically when people start their college education, or go back and continue their college education. And an episode is that college degree worth it? That we did back in April, and then a topic of commitment, and then one that is very, very important to me, which is investing in our youth. And then, of course, something that I have had to endeavor into a lot is the mind, and making sure that you keep your mind functioning properly and not letting it get the best of you. Those are just some of the topics that we have touched on over the last year on Money, Motivation, and Mike. And Jason, it's just really surprising to me that it's already been 55 episodes. And so the topics, the guests, our numbers have all been fantastic. We once again are very, very appreciative. Your feedback and the things that you have wowed us with. We see it on a daily basis, and we're very, very proud of it and very, very happy with your participation. Now, moving forward here into our second year and some of our future topics, and as we go in to the fall, one thing in the United States of America that means with fall is football. And the biggest football that's played in the world is the National Football League. And what we call, in my eyes, is the Supergiant. And there's only 32 of those teams that exist, and there's only 32 owners within that National Football League. We're going to do a couple episodes on the NFL and how all that came about in the AFL-NFL merger. And I've done a lot of research over this over the last 30, 40 years of my life. And we're going to talk about some of those things. And we're going to talk about music. We have not touched on music on this show, on Money, Motivation, and Mike to this date, and how music soothes the soul, and how you need to have music in your life, and the proper music. And there is some funky stuff out there. And there's some stuff that I cringe when I hear. Maybe it is soothing to your soul, and if it is, so be it. We're going to get into more guests. We're lining up guests as we speak and as we get back into those. And if you recall, we did guests there in the late fall, and we did guests in the early spring, or there in the early winter, if you will. More guests coming your way. Then a topic that is something that Jason has brought to the show that I know a lot of other shows do that I wasn't even aware of, called reaction videos. And reaction videos are simply Jason throwing stuff up here on the screens, and we've been getting this prepared. Those of you who are watching on YouTube, you can see that I now have a screen in front of me over here to my right. Those of you traveling down the road, listening to the podcast in another way, I have this video over here, as I say. It has pictures of a short up close shot of myself. Then it has the full room of our full studio, and it will soon have up reaction videos. So Jason will run a video of something, and then I will react to it. And a lot of the topics are topics that I have very little knowledge in, and that's what I'm talking about. So we wrote down a couple of things that are current, and also some past topics and things that have been going on in our world, such as is Hunter Biden guilty or innocent? Is his father, the president of the United States, Joe Biden, is he involved in it? We'll run clips, and then I will make a reaction to that. Going all the way back to 2016. And, if we had been on the air in 2016, I'm sure we would have covered with a reaction video the Colin Kaepernick and the kneeling, going to a knee during the national anthem that made such big news. But here we are 7-8 years later, and I would bet, Jason, that 80% of the people in the United States of America could not even tell you why he was kneeling at that time, because a lot of people were offended, and maybe his approach was not correct. Maybe his agenda was spot on. So, you think about that. There's different ways to approach stuff, and some of the best people with the best advice and the best information that they could give out to people maybe take a wrong approach, and right off the bat, people are turned off by that and they never listen. And I think Colin Kaepernick got involved in some of that. And I know he did, because like I say, all they remember is the public audience, the listening audience, the viewing audience. All we remember is a man taking a knee. And right there is where most people's most people's view stopped. Their eyes saw it all, their ears heard nothing. And that's, my opinion, and of course, my view of what I believe happened back in those days. And like I say, I really don't think that people even remember what Colin Kaepernick was trying to get done. And there's a whole lot of people who believe from that fact that he was blackballed out of the National Football League because of what he did. Well, I'm one of those people too. I don't know. I believe with some of the shoddy quarterback play we have in the National Football League that he probably could still throw it around, but because of his actions and his approach to some topics, he was no longer welcome, in my opinion. Now, obviously, nobody's ever said that, and the National Football League has held a tryout for him, and et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if it's all window dressing or not. My view is that it is, but nevertheless, his approach and actions, and our actions have consequences. We do know that, good and bad. He probably got caught up in that. Here we are from the 2020, still feeling the effects of our 2020 election. And if we had been on the air in 2020, Jason, I'm sure that we would have covered the Donald Trump. Did he have the election stolen from him? And, well, to this day, it has not been proved, but it also, a lot of people in those battleground states, or I wouldn't even call them battleground states, I would call the deciding factor states, such as Arizona and Michigan. And I saw an article here just in the last couple of days about how the Republican Party in Arizona and Michigan both, their cash flow and the monies in their bank accounts are at a all-time low, very low, because the major contributors in those particular states are not contributing because, as the article said, and I don't remember the author of the article, but nevertheless, it caught my attention about how low a national party, Republican or Democrat, either way, in a state such as Michigan, any of the states for that matter, that you could have cash flow or you could have reserves as low as theirs is. And one of them, I believe it was Michigan, was around 100, and Arizona is less than $40,000, and that's all the money they have because their major contributors were tired of hearing about their candidate, President Donald Trump, not winning the election. And they felt that a whole lot in those particular states, that the agendas of the Republican Party in those states had been spent more on trying to prove election was stolen than on focusing on the future elections. And because of that, major contributors have not made their major contributions. We would discuss topics such as that. One topic that just came up here in the last couple of days, cocaine in the White House. And my thoughts on that, and I know that we're just kind of giving you some ideas on exactly how we're going to do these reaction videos, but my thoughts on cocaine in the White House, people are going to say Joe Biden brought it in, Jill Biden brought it in, Hunter Biden brought it in. Who knows? Was it a Secret Service? Was it the cleaning person? Was it planted there from previous? Has it been there for a year? Was it dropped out of the sky? I know this. A lot of the things that are discussed on our national wavelengths, the MSNBCs, the Foxes, CBS, all the affiliates, some of the same places that Jason's going to find these reaction videos that I'm going to react to, a lot of the things that they cover, I don't think that people really even care about anymore. They're just so sick and tired. I think our public, our United States voting citizen, our United States non-voting citizen, that they're tired of hearing about all the hogwash that never amounts to anything. Who will actually be held accountable for finding cocaine in the White House? I don't think anybody will ever be held accountable for it. Trump got impeached. He didn't lose his job. He has these different things that have been pointed out that possibly he had a criminal offense over the last couple of years. He's still running for president. Hunter Biden, I believe, is Now, Jason, has he been? Did he plead guilty on something?
He pled guilty to firearm charge and tax evasion.
Okay. Al Capone went to jail for tax evasion 75 plus years ago, 1940s. I would say that Hunter Biden probably won't spend a day in jail for tax evasion. And I think that lots of things have been tied to him with the Chinese and this board and that oil company and yada, 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 whatever. What does it matter? Nothing ever comes of it. He's never going to be held accountable. The Democrats aren't going to be held accountable. The Republicans aren't going to be held accountable. The news media doesn't get held accountable. I believe it's all good entertainment, but I'm not for sure there's a whole lot of substance there. And that's just my view here on Money, Motivation, and Mike. And I don't pay a whole lot of attention to it because what does it matter? Nobody's going to do anything about it. Okay, so there's cocaine in the White House. And we know there's been a lot other things in that White House too that have not been discovered. But now that we discovered this, who is going to be held accountable for it? Nobody. Because nobody knows where it came from. And nobody will ever know. It's like, Jason and I talked off the air. You can't even figure out who killed JFK. How are you going to figure out who had cocaine in the White House? How are you going to figure out if the election was stolen? How are you going to figure out if Biden's telling you the truth? Blah, 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 blah. That's what I think about it, and I think the listening audience is tired of it. But we're still going to go into some of these topics, and Jason's going to come up with some phenomenal reaction videos. I know that politics will be some of those things, and I'm going to tell you how I feel about them, and we'll go from there. So just a few of the things that are coming up in the next upcoming year that we're going to be discussing on Money, Motivation, and Mike. And once again, the continued support that you have given us is astonishing. 28,263 people in the last 30 days, averaging over 7,000 downloads during that particular time. And we just continue to increase on a pretty regular basis as our listeners and our content continue to grow. We are once again ecstatic, happy, delirious, all the above of what you guys continue to show us on a daily basis. Money, Motivation, and Mike, as always, is here to serve the listening audience, trying to bring content and information to you that will benefit you in your daily life, walk of life, not only today, but also tomorrow. Always find us at mx3.vip. You can always contact us, info@mx3.vip. And of course, our new YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@MX3 Podcast. And don't forget to give us likes, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so that you know when all of our content comes out on a regular basis. Okay, year number 1 in the books. Our first episode of year number 2 is in the books, and we will continue here on Money, Motivation, and Mike on our next episode in 7 days. So for everyone who's been a part of this one, continue to live your life the right way.